and I was in a lot of pain, but I could see across the room and the pain left, and I wasn't breathing, and it felt something lift out of me and just left. My breath left, my last breath. I always remember that. And I could see across the room. I see the alarm clock, 10 till noon. I had a German Shepherd dog there with me. My dog was with me. And I tried to pet my dog, and my hand literally went through her chin, but my physical hand was laying there. And I knew I died, and I floated above my body and hovered there for a bit and looking around the bedroom, and I turned and I saw a fingerprint inside of a fold of ceiling texture that somebody left there, and you can't see with your naked eye. And I looked around, and I was cool. I was no more pain. Everything was perfect, pristine. And I went through the ceiling and entered what I call a very dark void. And and I was heading toward a brilliant light. I knew I was approaching like the governor of the universe or something like that. I knew I was approaching something. Um, to say at that moment, I lost all my atheism because I was still alive. In fact, I was more alive after I died than I am now. It's like waking up into the ultimate reality. And so I was floating through this void. I was hearing this beautiful, beautiful music and traveling toward this light. And I couldn't understand the language, but I could, being spoken to me, but I could understand what it's saying. And there was a bunch of people, like a cacophony of people singing, and they were singing praises to God and explaining his nature, his character, who he is, what he's like, all kinds of things. And then I would hear something coming toward me, and then all of a sudden it was like a voice that just unpacked a lot of stuff into my mind. And then I saw what people would in NEDs talk about a life review. I'd see bits and pieces of my life. And at that time, I felt great love, compassion, but I never realized I was heading toward a reckoning. That's exactly what I was doing because I was traveling there. Looking back on it from hindsight, what was being revealed to me was how I was basically uh, gaming God, if that makes sense. I was sticking my finger in his eye, saying things, "Oh God, if you're so good, you can't exist because if you were so good, you wouldn't let babies die, you wouldn't do this." And I had my arguments like a lot of people had, and I would say, if you're so full of grace and stuff, you have to let me into heaven anyway because I didn't ask to be born. Had all these excuses, and all those were being exposed. I was seeing myself for who and what I was really like. So got near to the brightness of the light, and it was coming from a rock, suspended in space, and there was coming from a person standing on that rock, and and I could see something behind the rock, and I could see like a burning ember off to my right, which would be, and so I could see that, and I landed feet first upon the rock, and this person was sitting on a seat. I don't know how to explain, like on the side of a rock with a seat wall, like a little ledge on it. He got off and stepped down toward me. He's wearing a hood. The light was coming from him. It was so bright, and so he walked down to me, and I fell face first on the ground. And then somebody picked me up, which I don't know who or what picked me up, but something picked me up and stood me in front of him. And I knew who it was. And so he began to speak to me. And basically, to make a long story short, I was judged. I saw myself for what I was really like, all my excuses. And I couldn't go to God and say, well, I was born under a bad sign. It hit me on the head, and that's why I did all my bad things. And I couldn't talk my way out of it. I couldn't weasel my way out of it. None of my reasoning could stand, but what was being shown to me, because he showed me how I abused and took advantage of all the love he's given me. He gave me good parents. He gave me life, and I ruined it. I made life perfectly ugly wherever I went, and made other people's life ugly. And I was being held accountable to that. And at the time when I was doing all these things, what else was revealed to me was that I justified it. And when you stand before the Lord God Almighty, you're not going to be able to justify anything. You can't say this, that, or the other thing. He'll show you how you messed up life, what you did with your life. And all he wants is people to simply trust him, but people don't. They want to rely on their own selves and their own ability, just like I did. And I realized I was without hope. And I was judged. And then he spoke to me. He literally spoke to me like like, and so he literally said, um, "It's been granted to thee." To say, when you arrive, when you arrive, he said that you will see a land unknown that's best forgotten, but not to be left unseen. And when you arrive, say my name and my title. Returning is a option yet to be decided. I just remember those words because it was like an option to be decided. And that was, I didn't know what was going on. I really, I was kind of flummoxed. I was like, wow. And I'm being judged. And I see what my heart is really like. And it's a terrible experience to see that. And then something picked me up and I floated over to his right, which would be to his left hand. And there was a door there, like a scroll rolled open, and I went into this tunnel. And it was like, I would say, inside of, I'm trying to relate it to other people. We call them tornadoes, vortexes, water spouts, or something like that. And it was like being in the inside of that, but it was a hideous looking green. It smelled horrible. It was hot, so hot, it felt like your eyeballs are going to melt out of your sockets. And I could hear all these weird noises and slurping sounds and screams and hideous language and all this stuff going on. And next thing I know, I went to the yellow dent at the end of the tunnel and went through the sky and hit the ground real hard and bounced. And I wasn't hurt. I just bounced and stood up, and there I was looking at a landscape, I was on one hill. There was a hill with a steep hill, and over on the other side was a house, a dilapidated looking house. Everything looked brown and unwatered for a long time, kind of decaying and stuff, and this dilapidated tree, and all these beings came out of it. And they came down the hill and ran up. More of them came up out of there, out of the little bend where I couldn't see down the hill. They came up and were surrounding me and slapping me on the back and telling me, "Welcome, Brian, to paradise. Can't you feel the love here?" I felt love, but it wasn't real love. This was a sickly, sweet love, and something sinister behind it. And so, and all these people were people I've known who have died and stuff, others who I don't even know who they were. And but what was strange was their eyes. They had if you had crocodiles, alligators at night, you'll see their irises are yellow. That's what they looked at, that yellow dent in their eyes. And then they began to morph into what they were. These were demonic creatures that were given the illusion of people. Eventually, you ended up seeing this cube of flames, and there was Adolf Hitler in there. And what occurred to me, he was reaping what he sowed. He was experiencing every death, everything he did is coming back to him. One person at a time. In World War II, every person who died in World War II, every civilian, every Hebrew person, everybody who was murdered, every baby, whatever, he was feeling that as that person. That's what he was going through. So in that, when I saw him, he was going in the ovens. And I don't know how to explain it. These things standing there, it just comes to you. And you've seen some very bad actors. You saw some other people there that I don't even know who they were and why, what they were doing. I saw people who practice the occult works down there. I saw this Esorteus type of person inside of a coffin trying to scratch to get out. And I knew instantly it was simply because she liked to kill people before their time.